Rebuild Kawthoolei, Rebuild the Fundamentals. An essay on three-tier architecture of rebuilding the nation: 1. People and culture, 2. Rules and procedures, and 3. Technology and infrastructure. The land of Kawthoolei is endowed with vast wealth of mineral deposits potentially worth trillions of dollars. That immense amount of wealth from ancestral blessings could elevate every Karen people in a state of physical luxury. But, without governing the natural endowment with sound institutions under strong regulations, that underground treasures could bring up curses to Kawthoolei, both of the people and the land and everything in it. To rebuild Kawthoolei, first rebuild people's character. The second fundamental is the rules that structure the way we conduct our business. Lastly, we can rebuild infrastructure using the latest and greatest technology. The order of building these three fundamentals matters such that physical infrastructure does not have priority over the other two. Kawthoolei, this land of ours, will not succeed with a poor national character, the habit of setting oneself a low bar. Our individual's character collectively shape the nation's character. It is the people that collectively make the nation. Thus, the success of our nation rests upon rebuilding the first fundamental, the people's culture. Our people need to build a habit of treating small things seriously, a culture of being organized and proactive in preventing small problems from becoming disasters. At the moment of crisis, the tendency toward everyone giving random directions would not solve the problem. For example, everyone shouting directions to rescue a drifting boat loaded with young students in a raging Moe River in the middle of the rainy season indicates a lack of structure among ourselves. To solve a problem, we first must acknowledge the existence of it. We the Karen people are numerous in number, but scattered and poorly organized. To get organized, we need structure. To have structure, we need formal rules and regulations in all institutions in the realm of legal, economic, defense, transportation, communication, immigration, social and health care system. Only within regulatory frameworks should come technology and physical infrastructure. Material success is not a primary pursuit of Kawthoolei ideals, nor will physical infrastructure indicate progress. Making logistics flow so that goods and services are accessible to everyone is more important. For instance, infrastructures in the US may be aging, but the institutional gears and logistics behind the scene are mature and complex connection flows. New nations in Asia may have flashy infrastructure like biggest airports and tallest skyscrapers, but those are superficial, and their logistics can be glitchy. For some, their social hierarchy can be repressive. Nations' immense wealth in natural resources warrant strong regulations. Academics and economists call this paradox resources curse, where most resources-rich countries in Africa are facing crippling economy, deprivation, a circle of dependency, and violence. The abundant resources not governed by regulations but excessive greed only bring corruption, exploitation, and violence on locals. Whereas, countries like Canada, USA, Norway or Israel govern their underground resources with good governance, the endowments bring prosperity and strengthen their nations. No ground should be broken for mineral extractions until a thoughtful, comprehensive regulatory framework has been established. Regulatory framework here includes rules, acts, policies, code of conducts, entrenched ideas and beliefs. Land is sacred where the spirits of ancestors still roam. Breaking the ground without proper ceremonies and respect could bring curses. During the past decade of supposed peacetime, business rushed in without properly guarded by regulations. Muddy waters from gold mining flowing into streams and rivers not only killed water creatures and destroyed paddy fields, but also spread toxic chemicals on farmlands, bringing lasting negative effects and health hazards, destroying livelihood of local inhabitants. The locals could only cry for help, but a lack of system was a system to destroy. The heavy metals most commonly associated with poison are lead, mercury, gold mining, arsenic and cadmium, battery components. Reckless waste disposals and aggressive extraction of underground minerals contaminate lands and water. Going in such reckless fashion, the locals could suffer from organ failures, or everyone would die from different kinds of cancer as a result of chemicals disposed of from the extractive industry. Unless guarded by a cohesive regulatory framework based on scientific studies and honoring the real owners, the local natives, extractive industry will kill slowly and surely. Free flow of goods and services out of the free market comes with certain cultures and ideologies attached, which may not be compatible with Kawthoolei ideals. We may have vast treasure under our feet, but how are we going to generate a surplus and manage it for the welfare of the people without proper financial regulation and political institutions in place? The same goes for treasures on the ground surface. The abundance of precious woods in Kawthoolei has only brought destruction to the environment and livelihood of the locals, that is the real owner of the land. For generations, empirical evidence has already shown that power not bounded by clear rules brings only corruption, distrust, and eventual self-destruction. Regulatory framework stitches all different pieces so that those can flow without colliding with each other. Regulatory framework both prevents the corrupt habit of prioritizing self-interest using discretionary power, and prescribes how conflicts should be resolved. Kawthoolei ought not to rush adopting a free market. Market economy bounded by sound policies takes time to develop and implement. Again, the success of the U.S. market economy is a century-old, ever-evolving, mature regulatory framework even though it may be a culturally young nation. China, on the other hand, their financial regulatory system has nothing near to that of the U.S. Many people from China living in the U.S. are admiringly surprised by the rule-based society of the U.S. In turn, the U.S. civic culture is strongly shaped by the regulatory framework. Honoring privacy and private ownership are not only guaranteed by the supreme law of the land, but a respect for personal space is more than laws. It's a philosophy and lifestyle of the nation. We need to rebuild our national thinking. If the people are accustomed to sloppy workmanship, that is a habit indicating our characters. We are people with a relaxed attitude. However, we will not excel with a lax in character. A habit of a respect for small details, a love of great workmanship, a dedication to elegance needs to be nurtured. We need to build things with pride and devotion, with good care as well as with love, and trust our own products. Korean women trust makeup made in Korea and only use that product with peace of mind for beauty. Korean people eat fish paste, soy paste, shrimp paste, and all kinds of pickles like many of the Karen people. But Koreans make their food with respect, they package it with care, they eat it with pride, and they can sell it with premium. We have a habit of presenting our foods like wild, backward, tribal, uncivilized food. Worried that other might find the smell offensive, we at times eat discreetly with shame, we sell it like unconventional food. In fact, our diets not only taste good but are rich in nutrition, hence it ought to be eaten with pride and for good health. It is a time-tested diet after all. Good workmanship is not a genetic monopoly of the West nor the East. Germany, Switzerland, or Japan add a high premium to their products because their consistent workmanship creates trust in their brands. To ever be considered respectable, our people must rebuild trust in character and workmanship. Doing things in great care and respect is not only of high value in material workmanship, it also applies to the service industry, the attitude of how we serve. Not all cultural practices are good nor always good. Only good practices are reinforced and codified, and the laws intervene when there are signs of problems. A good institutional culture is no accident, it requires intentional daily maintenance from every member of the people in the society. UC ethical training. We hold many beautiful national values that ought to be constantly cultivated. We consider ourselves the people who uphold honesty, an official virtue cherished in our national anthem, Kawthoolei. However, this virtue will not thrive on a barren land. Without constantly nurturing ethics and integrity among the people at community levels, virtue will decay. Honesty strengthens integrity that need to be cultivated in both leadership and ordinary citizens. From these two virtues, trust is created. From trust, loyalty flourishes. Fidelity stems from a strong conscience of being faithful to one's nation, leaders, and fellow citizens. Fidelity creates brotherhood, a sense of service and sacrifice for common good. When this virtuous circle breaks, a vicious circle is created, distrust and quarrels grow. Dr. San Si Po notes that the Karen people's virtuous character traits include hospitality, steadiness, and simplicity, among which steadiness is not just a virtue but a style with tangible value that the fast-paced modern world demands. To be cool, calm, and steady in times of uncertainty, during trial and tribulation, is becoming more valuable in a complicated, fast-moving, material-seeking society. Steadiness is a striking character of the Karen people among their neighbors, Yi, Tall, Pei. It is a visible trait during the death of a family member. Walking under the shadow of the valley of death, the Karen people do not usually cry out loud in high pitch like their neighbors but weep and wail silently even under great sufferings. Donation-seeking organizations hardly manage to get the dramas out of real pain from these steady people. Our people have been seeing the burning of their houses and ripened paddy fields. Shoot-on-sight killings happen on their own lands, but no one will ever see images of the Karen people crying out loud in a horrific event. Our people are running and hiding for their lives, but they usually smile in front of cameras. This trait of steadiness is the virtue to promote as a national character in rebuilding the nation. The Greenland rainforest, captured by Sa La. In the political environment, our people are frustrated with leadership. But those leaders are not strangers coming from faraway land or celestial beings falling from the sky. They come out among us, so their characters are a reflection of ours. Great leadership is a fusion of character, manager, and thinker. A leadership culture that holds a high standard of character, is skillful in management, and is visionary in thinking. That culture we need to constantly nurture. Problems arise when the desire to be leadership merely equates the craving for power. However high expectations on leadership to be virtuous, in practice the power of every leader must be bound by rules. As a long-term national investment, great leadership that earns trust and admiration needs to be cultivated among the youth, probably not among the old when it is too rigid to mold. The Karen people believe they are the most beautiful people, Phalidcat, having formalized that belief in national anthem. But the Karen people are not angels. And no man's virtue is unshakable without being guarded by law. Without strict rules for accountability, any leadership with power can turn nasty. The psyche of unearned privilege among our people needs a total scrap off. A backward feudal psyche, the habit that some people think they have privileges based on being relatives to high officials, is a disease among our people. To create a fair and equal society that is pleasant to live in, no one ought to have privilege just because of being relatives to authority. Our need to create impersonal institutions following predefined rule sets rather than personal connection. Many stories about Mar Ner Pla era, the de facto Karen sovereign nation in modern times, tell favoritism entrenched in our practices. Favor was given toward a certain people with a specific religious affiliation who had worship service on a specific day of the week. Other certain groups of lower rank personnel were arbitrarily denied for transportation service. Kawthoolei will not succeed with the culture operating under such unprofessional practices. To operate on a national scale, we need to create professional and personal organizations that structure beyond personal connection. Successful global organizations and nation-states coordinate seamlessly by following a predefined set of rules. There, people collaborate on a global scale not by knowing each other personally but by coordinating among dedicated teams with specialized responsibility. When a traveler boards a plane, the pilot does not need to know her. The security check does not need to know the traveler, but trusts a paper passport issued from an accredited agency. Flight attendants put their trust in a ticketing system built by a software company, possibly employing programmers from different parts of the world who do not know each other personally. Different crews on the ground and in the air coordinate, then a traveler to make her destination with style. If we Karen people operate only within personal connection, Kawthoolei will not go anywhere. We need to cultivate the culture of listening to dissent, appreciating fresh ideas different from one's own. Often, we act immaturely, turning ourselves off against opposing views. Holding distrust to individuals who may have a slightly different view from ours. That culture reinforces mutual bubbles and destroys large-scale collaboration among people who may have a rich variety of views. Honest and most beautiful, the Karen people are not angels but still fallible human beings. They must have repeated follies that keeps them in a victim stage in this prosperous era. Without being guarded by laws and accounting audits, people in power will be prone to corruption, the misuse of power compounded by poor accounting. We need to cultivate a culture of lifelong learning. Ability to think critically and make independently sound judgment is a weakness of our people. Without a curious mind, a thirst to investigate things critically, our people will have a tendency toward gullibility. Our people tend to chase flashy ideas from the outside. Rather than improving our native values when met with novel ideas, we let outside ideas corrode our thinking, which in turn weakens our identity, our existence. The problem exists both in the educated and the lesser ones alike. We need to rebuild the national can-do attitude. Affected by a widespread infestation, most Karen people operate in a minority mindset. From educational institution to humanitarian aids organizations, all reinforce the mentality of ethnic minority, the persecuted minority. Over time, our people unconsciously go begging for sympathy, issuing organization letters and statements outcrying international attention in high hope of help. Rather than building alliances, we run for pity. The world is not to be fooled with blatant appeal to sympathy. It is an insult to them as well as to the people. If we are sincere, we must re-educate ourselves on how the international system works, both the past and the present. International system never favors the weak nor the meek, but only might and force determine the fate of a nation. International community may collaborate for the progress of humanity, but they are not responsible for providing us food, shelter, or safety. Every nation has to put their interest first, then carefully allocate their surplus to help those in need within a predetermined quota. Wealthy nations have generosity but not unlimited one. Every nation takes care of their fellow members first as a divine given responsibility. The world creates a universal declaration of human rights, but we have a responsibility to assert those individual rights collectively. We as a nation are not to wait for the world to protect our rights, or wealthy donors to rebuild our nation. The world may respect our rights, but they are not responsible for safeguarding the rights we have. Victim mentality will lead us nowhere but kill our spirit, so we ought to scrap it off from our thinking as well as from our acts. We are only ourselves to bootstrap with what we have. We need to reclaim the gift of being the first nation HPIWelki, endowed by our native god, Yadi. Instead of being a burden to the world with a constant misery, we have a divine responsibility to be benefiting the world through our invention, discoveries, and social and political values. The ideals of Kawthoolei are the ideals of all human desire, a land without thief, quarrel, and aggression. It ought to be the universal values every nation strives for. We should be leading instead of waiting. We need to think to secure blessings for our posterity. California takes its name, the Golden State, from previous century gold discoveries. Happening before policies and procedures supported by science, those gold mining businesses have a toxic legacy of mercury contamination to future generations, who now have to deal with those heavy chemicals in their soil and water system. To safeguard Kawthoolei from misuse of hazardous materials, policies and regulations need to be developed for various material uses: pesticide, chemical, biological, lab hazard, radiation, or wastewater in agriculture, forest, mining and urban development. Regulation does not restrict. Strong regulatory environment of California appears unfriendly to innovation and creativity. It is the contrary. California as the hub of innovation is not only in the domain of digital technology, but social values from progressive thinking and cultural values are leading the way. A culture of diversity and high professional standards in academic environments allows California to be the state with the highest number of scientists and Nobel laureates. Owing to wisdom of the previous generation, no citizens of California go thirsty even after the state had suffered drought for more than a decade. The generation of a century ago has created water laws and physical infrastructure such as reservoirs and drainage and elaborate water rights. California not only withstand the drought but still produce citrus fruits, nuts, and variety of vegetables as the state feeding the whole nation. Without forward-thinking ancestors and long-term planning regulatory framework, the nation would not withstand a slight deprivation. We can learn easily from other nations to build institutions and physical infrastructure. Learning from other blunders and successes, we can navigate ourselves to avoid pitfalls while emulating their successes. We can just walk the path already taken when it comes to technological progress. It took about 400 years for Great Britain to complete their industrial revolution. It took only 50 years for Korea to catch up and surpass the British. It is not just because Koreans are smarter to have achieved that shortcut, but they were able to just take the road already taken. Scientific principles applied to every part of the world. Kawthoolei is not excluded to follow best design principles and best formulas for materials engineering. Within a 20-year time frame, we should be able to catch up with the developed world in social, economic, and infrastructure. Scientific discoveries and technology breakthroughs only go forward for everyone. It took 40 years for Israel to get rid of mosquito problems. For Kawthoolei, less than 10 years defining her total freedom, mosquitoes can be eliminated with their natural enemy with minimum impact on the environment. Malaria is an intractable health problem for Kawthoolei. Every rainy season people have to suffer from it, while east of the Salween River, this health problem has been eliminated. Scientifically speaking, the how is nearly settled. We only need to adapt to our situation. This is the latecomer's advantage. Technology breakthroughs of the world benefit the whole world. In the past, it took more than a decade to develop a vaccine. But, for COVID-19 it took 1 year, made possible within that time frame by the help of artificial intelligence to model endless possible variation of virus strains. And, high-speed internet connection and cloud computing make real-time global collaboration possible. We the people of simplicity already align a minimalist approach to rebuilding physical infrastructure. Communication and energy networks, schools, hospitals, and roads are essential for quality of life and progress. But, overdevelopment could throw fragile ecosystems out of balance, which in turn brings unknown negative effects. Even building infrastructure for renewable energy, we should harness solar energy from solar farms and wind energy, but should proceed with care, listening to feedback from Mother Earth if she feels fine. We may not even need roads everywhere for the comfort of travel. Walking is what humans are born to do, that promote health and longevity. They have been walking with 2 legs, a signature mobility, since the dawn of human species, long before roads and motor vehicles existed. A pursuit of material progress requires extra caution not to be too intrusive, going against nature. It may take 1,000 years for a culture to develop. It may take 100 years for a nation's regulatory framework and institutional culture to mature, while infrastructure, a reflection of people's culture, can shape a nation's landscape within a decade. Nevertheless, with a sound structure, we can strive to rebuild the people within 1 generation who share norms and values that drive them to be a unified, loyal, and organized people, the essentials for nation building and nation's progress. Culture is what dictates norms and expectations. Even laws and enforcement bodies are in place. If we are striving for Kawthoolei to be a land without thieves, relying solely only on laws and law enforcement cannot make Kawthoolei be void of thieves. Only a high culture of ethics can make the land be void of stealing, lying, or aggression. Harmful culture norms, bad apples and bad habits, are to be safeguarded by rule of law. Schools and universities promote patriotism, sound politics, and civic values, among which are honesty, equality, industry, initiative, integrity, being dutiful to the nation for the common cause, and maintaining order and cleanliness. Judicial system follows a predefined set of rules to enforce laws while sound policies promote good institutional culture. Through sound economic policies come a healthy economy that reduces hardship for citizens while good education that strengthens social progress and national spirit. These three tiers, people and culture, rules and procedures, technology and infrastructure, are mutually reinforcing each other. The first two tiers, people and procedure, reinforce each other and strengthen infrastructure toward reaching the Kawthoolei ideal, not only a land without evils but a land of virtue, the dream of our forebears. These three-tier fundamentals are essential during peacetime for building the nation, yet even more important during the revolution to build a good structure where we have a strong revolutionary army with good governance that gains mass public support and people's trust. Kawthoolei will not succeed with being comfortable with mediocrity. It will demand ruthless determination, but surely not reckless ambition. We need to be informed, organized, and proactive to compete with the world and excel. Above all, may we need providential circumstances that favor our endeavor. As we toil for national dream, may the spirit of our ancestors watch over us, may the Most High bless our struggle to restore our heritage. Views in this essay are solely those of Salah K. Ba and do not represent the view of the organizations he serves.